know. Time to make a change.
It's time, y'all. Truth time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner. So glad you are here with us today. We appreciate each and every one of you. Go run, go tell it all over. Tell it on the mountain, tell it everywhere. That truth time is happening right now on KBLA Talk, baby. 1580. Good day to you, Dr. West.
It's always a blessing. We've made it through the weekend with smiles on our faces and some joy in our soul, and that is good news.
That is absolute good news. So, Doc, we want to start off with some truth time musings. What's on your
Mm,
mind?
mm. Well, I think all of us in so many ways are wrestling with despair.
Yeah.
Really, it's not just the fires, it's not just the wind, but it's the storms in our lives. It's the various challenges and crises and even catastrophes with which we all have to come to terms. And we know catastrophes come in a variety of different forms. It could be political, economic, it could be psychic and spiritual. And I think one of the things we want to do here on Truth Time, as we noted last week, is that we're not just reacting to events the way most shows are. No, we have a broad vision, a large framework with a bigger picture, and we are rooted in the tradition of a great Black people who have been on intimate terms with despair, with catastrophe, with crises, with calamity, and even monstrosity, from slave ships all the way to hoods and in mass incarceration sites. And so that's what's really very much on my mind today. The great German poet Goethe, like the Beethoven of German literature, he said, he or she who has never despaired has never lived. And so we got to let people know that there's nothing wrong with feeling despairing. We just don't want to linger there. You have to work through it. There's nothing wrong with wrestling with despair, the way Jacob wrestles with despair in the 32nd chapter of Genesis and emerges with new name, new energy, new vision, new vitality, a God wrestler. That's really what Israel means, God wrestling. And we can use it as a critique of any nation's practices, but God wrestling. And if you don't believe in God, then you're wrestling with something that you love. And I think one of the great insights and lessons of our tradition, be it John Coltrane's Love Supreme, be it Toni Morrison's Beloved, that love is not just a gift, but a task. It's something you receive, but you got to learn how to receive. And then it's a giving, but you got to learn how to give. And then it is a accenting of a need to love and the need to be loved. Remember the title of brother Barry Gordy's autobiography, To Be Loved. He wrote that for Jackie Wilson. That's a cold title. Oh, now Barry Gordy may not be W.B. Du Bois, we understand, but that's all right. That's all right. He's a grand figure. And he's talking about love as a need that is connected to deed. How do we do? How do we act? And then it's a seed so that it grows and sprouts in the tradition that we have been shaped and molded. And when you reach that point, my dear sister Nina, that despair that you started with in your back mirror is with you all the time, but it's not determining where you go.
Absolutely, Doc. I mean, when you said deeds, I often, how people get caught up in titles and a lot of times get caught up in political parties. And I often I often continue to say that it's not the D in Democrat, but it's the D in deeds. DEEDS. And so for anybody who's in a type of ministry, be it elected or otherwise, it has to be about our deeds. I'm just thinking about our tradition, and you had me. I mean, I feel like I'm on the first pew of the church because I'm a Baptist Costal. Baptist Costal, note that. went to church 8 days a week. But I think about that song that love lifted me when nothing else would help.
If
Love
nothing
lifted
else would
me.
help,
Yeah, and
love
it's
lifted me.
not a religious thing, it's a spiritual thing. And that is what the folks in LA County need. You know, they need that love. When Norfolk, you know, had that train wreck and spewed all that poison to my sisters and brothers and family and friends in East Palestine, Ohio. That's what they need. Love. Whether it's dirty water in Jackson or dirty water in Flint, love lifted me. And love being manifest, especially when you have political power, it definitely comes in the form of deeds. What do you
Indeed.
do to lift the people?
That's exactly it, my dear sister. You hit the nails on the head. And see, when you think in terms of the relation of despair and love, so that hope comes out of despair, so that joy is a fruit of love, not just pleasure, but joy at the highest level, then you are well equipped to deal with any kind of despair coming your way. And that's the history of Black people. That's the history of oppressed people everywhere. It's the history of a lot of individuals, even in well-to-do places, because it's choices people make. And those choices have to do with courage. They have to do with integrity, not purity, integrity. And on Truth Time, on our show, we're going to be coming back to this in all of its various forms, because love is one, yet many. It has a common source and a common anchor, but it's manifest in a lot of different forms.
And it's action too. A lot of times people think love is weak. Love is strong. And it's
Oh,
an action word.
that's
Corporately and also personally, or communally, I should say. And also personally, it's a word of action and great courage, because the love is to have courage.
that's well, you can't be in love and be a coward. Just like God can't use no cowards. Freedom
Cannot.
movement can't use no cowards. Now, freedom movements have to be grounded in the love of the people, though. You see, you can't just be talking like you're a freedom fighter and hate the people that you're fighting for. Just then it ends up being just about you, you see. And this is part of the issues of our leadership. We'll get into that.
And as we're weaving that in, Doc, you making me think. I mean, one of my mentors, Mayor Frank G. Jackson, former mayor of the city of Cleveland, when he talked about cowards, he would always say, you can't give a man, and we can put woman there, or person, a spine who doesn't have one. That was number one.
Ooh.
And number two, he said, you cannot serve that which you do not love.
Ooh. Both of those are powerful.
Yeah.
Both of those are powerful. But I would say, just as a Christian, that God can actually give you a spine.
You think so?
Oh, I've known some spineless Negroes who the Lord transformed and turned into some serious forces for good. But that's what you call a miracle.
I've been transformed by the renewing of my mind.
Turn you upside.
That part. Well, speaking of renewing of minds, when we come forward, Dr. West and I will definitely look at some of the news of the day. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
Speaking truth to power and to the powerless. This is Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
We gon' be alright.
KBLA Talk 1580 is amplifying Black voices and spotlighting our untold stories. I'm Dominique DePrima. Join me Thursday from 6 to 9 a.m. as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on Lincoln Avenue in Altadena, covering the individuals and families impacted by the Altadena Eaton fire. Hear from community leaders and those who have suffered losses that must not be forgotten. Together, we can help them rebuild and recover. Together, we are LA Strong, LA United, with your friends at KBLA Talk 1580.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Light a candle, pour some wine. Grab a roll, the soft kind for a little me time. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wavy edges for my rear. So let the softness caress your soul. Just relax, you're on a roll. Let her rip. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear.
Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear has the same softness you love. Now with wavy edges that tear better than the leading one-ply brand. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Are you facing an unexpected financial emergency? You need WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com could help you get up to $3,000 fast. WeFixMoney.com is free to use, available 24/7, and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. Go to the name you trust, WeFixMoney.com. If you need emergency cash up to $3,000 for bills or anything else, type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. That's WeFixMoney.com.
Ever have one of those days where your gut just feels blah?
Ugh, yes.
Occasional bloating or gas could be signs that your gut is out of balance, but Align Probiotic can help. Align 24/7 Digestive Support is a daily use probiotic with a unique strain to help relieve occasional digestive issues. It's the #1 doctor-recommended brand. So when you feel the signs, it's time to try Align. Align Probiotic. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Want to play a game with me and Dad?
Mommy's not feeling good.
You need to vaporize that cold.
Vaporize?
Yeah, with Dayquil VapoCool. It's Dayquil plus a rush of Vicks vapors.
Whoa.
Come on, honey. Let's let mommy rest.
You guys are amazing. And so is Dayquil VapoCool.
Dayquil VapoCool, the vaporizing daytime coughing, aching, fever, power through your day medicine. And to vaporize sore throat pain, try Vicks VapoCool drops. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
To thine own self be true. More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner coming your way right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
I had myself muted. Truth Time musings were beautiful. And if you happen to not hear it in real time, well, you can go to KBLA Talk 1580. Download our app. Do that. And then wherever you get podcasts, you can catch all of the shows, all of the previous shows by going to either Google Play, App Store, or wherever you get your apps. Wherever you get your apps, you can download and listen to our show in the podcast form. But for now, those of you who are listening live, we sending love to you. Those of you who are listening and watching on YouTube, we sending love to you as well. So, Doc, we were musing about love and the power of love, how love can lift, love can heal, and love is an action word.
Yes, yeah, indeed. It's a verb. It's a verb. It's a virtue, but it's also a verb. A verb means you're in motion, you're in movement. A virtue means it's the disposition to act and choose, and most importantly, to give of yourself. And one of the signs of an empire in deep spiritual decay, which is the United States, and in a way, you see these fires with all of this wind, it's a combination of nature, but it's also human-made crisis as well. It's a combination of both. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that our organized greed and our weaponized contempt for one another and our indifference to the poor and working class, our indifference to so many Black folk and brown folk and indigenous peoples, it takes the form of creating a society and culture where it's difficult for people to cultivate the capacity to love and be loved, you see. And if once you're in a situation where people no longer learn how to give of themselves, is what my brother Cliff West, who's a zillion times wiser than I am, right? I tell you that right now. He said, come on, the whole society is about transaction. They've given up on transformation. It's all manipulation. They've given up on fundamental transformation of self, let alone society. And once you have a culture of massive manipulation and massive transaction, then you end up with a president like Trump. Trump ain't nothing but transaction and manipulation. No doubt about that. That's just who he is. You know, he hasn't cultivated the capacity to go deeper. He just lives on the surface. And large numbers of fellow Americans look at him and say, dang, as Cliff reminds me, he's just like me. I'm living on the surface too. My whole life basically is transaction. I'm trying to get, grab. I ain't giving nothing. I ain't sacrificing too much. I'm going through some tough times, but it's all about me. That's narcissism. So you get Trump, he's just a mirror for the empire in terms of its dominant tendency. That's not every individual in the empire, but that's the sign of the spiritual decay. And that's how you get beyond just the name calling. Because see, we could talk about Trump for a million years. The brother, the dead up gangster. Everybody know he's a dead up narcissist. Everybody know. We ain't going too far when you say that. We need an analysis of the culture, the system, the society that not just produced him, but allowed him to go to the top. So he mirrors the worst. And what's the worst thing about human beings? Uncultivated capacity to love. Can you imagine going from the crib to the tomb and never experiencing love? Have you really lived?
That would be a sad, miserable life indeed.
Isn't
And that
that?
reflection part, because a lot of folks, especially in the political space, they get off on pointing the finger at Trump.
Absolutely.
But I remember Brother Michael Jackson had a song, I'm looking at the man in the mirror.
At the man in the mirror.
Come on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and our dear sister who wrote that song, what's her name? Oh, I forget her name, but she's a great songwriter. Set Free or something like that. But she's a great songwriter, absolutely.
And asking to make that change,
Make that change. Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
That couldn't be any clearer.
If
you want to make the world a better place,
take a look at yourself and make a change.
Ooh. And we can do that both individually, but also communally. Those two things absolutely go together. Doc, we laying it down today. That's our Truth Time musings, and we're going to do this on a regular basis as we reflect. And what we are talking about can be interwoven into any subject area.
That's exactly right.
So our audience can take it wherever they want to take it. Love. Action word. It lifts, it heals, it admonishes, though it calls out wrong as well. Love don't just accept mediocrity, and it doesn't accept injustice. Now that's another part of love that we don't talk about often. We doing that thing here.
With Duke Ellington say love is a 4-letter word for God. You see how Duke is dealing with the low, deep frequencies? A 4-letter word. And we can think of some other 4-letter words now.
Yeah.
When you get LOVE, it's like, whoo, once you've been there, that's Luther Vandross. That for God is love.
That's it. Oh, beautiful way to start off Truth Time. Now, in terms of what is happening in the news on Truth Time, we are going to look at the fact that President Biden may pardon President-elect second time around Trump. He might do that. President Trump was sentenced on Friday in a New York court. And speaking of the fires, historically Black neighborhood is being reduced to ashes right now. And we want to talk about that. Aldenta, the city of Altadena is being reduced to ashes, and Altadena is a historically Black neighborhood, Dr. West. So we know that in the greater California area, LA County, a lot of misery is hurting both rich and poor,
that's right,
young and seasoned. It doesn't matter what identities are. When Mother Nature is raging like this is a serious moment. And we also know that if you are among the working class, when tragedies such as these strike, it hurts you, it hits you deeper because you don't have the resources necessarily to rebuild. So let's I'm sure that not a lot of people know that is a historically Black neighborhood, but some of it, that in that city or in there, that it was California's first middle class Black community. first place in California where Black people could buy land in a very communal way, accumulated generations of wealth, could free oppression. Yes, oppression. A lot of Black folks migrated there. And especially those migrating to flee the Jim Crow South. Like a lot of times when people think about that, they think about places like Cleveland, Chicago, Detroit, and not enough is talked about or raised when it comes to California. Like my heart aches for everybody that is suffering. We're pulling this story out just to show that there is a deeper type of suffering. We know that insurance companies are pulling out like crazy, leaving vulnerable populations even more vulnerable.
No, that's real. But see, when you have a system whose fundamental aim is just money making, then in the middle of a crisis, people still thinking about their money. The same is true in terms of different people now trying to find places to live. You see, you get the price gouging that's taking place. Brother Tavis was telling me about this, so that they're doubling and tripling the rents to take advantage of the folks whose houses have burned down. You see, that's just the wretchedness of human beings making immoral choices, not caring about others, not being concerned about others. But you're absolutely right. I mean, our heart goes out and prayers go out to all of those persons who are wrestling with this indescribable catastrophe, no matter who they are, no matter what color. But Altadena, you're right, historically has been a place where the flourishing of Black families, Black communities, Black churches, Black mosques, I mean, this flourishing of Black life, like any other life, matters. And we just want to be there with them. The beautiful thing is, as you know, Brother Tavis's show, you know, they shifting, they're going to be in Altadena on Thursday. See, that's kind of Brother Tavis is. That's the kind of show he has. Right? He sent his Sister Dominique with her wonderful self. She gonna be right there in the Black community, along with the other voices of the show. So that's a sign of deep solidarity. That takes a lot of work now. You got to find a place, make sure all the electricity and sales are working and so forth and so on, so your radio show can be heard in LA and around the world on podcast. But that's kind of solidarity KBLA Talk 1580 is all about, with Brother Tavis's leadership.
Yeah, and really getting the stories out of the everyday people who are being impacted by this. And some of these, I want to go back to the insurance company part, that total corruption. Because not only are they pulling out in places like LA County, they've pulled out of some places in Florida. You can't get insured because of hurricanes, because of flooding, excessive flooding. They should not be able to do that. That should be against the rules. And so government is designed for us to do collectively what we cannot do as individuals. But government is also supposed to call the fouls, the strikes, the outs, the wrongs. That is a function of government as well. And there is no way from the local level to the federal level that any insurance company should be allowed to pull out when people are at their lowest point. Dr. West, back to your point about all they see is money. And so for them, they can no longer make profits off of these folks. So these people are expendable in one of the most crushing times of their lives. Now, government is going to have to fill the vacuum. However, in government filling the vacuum, they should also admonish these companies, this should not be allowed. That's just me.
That's exactly right. And that's where the moral and the spiritual dimension of the capitalist obsession with profit comes in. If you view making money as an idol, as a form of idolatry, which means that's what you worship, that's what you really love. You really love with all of your heart the money and status.
More than you love the people. That is crystal clear. When we come forward, Dr. West and I will continue this conversation. You are listening to Truth Time on KBLA Talk 1580.
The truth will set you free, but first it might raise your blood pressure.
I'm not driving you, man.
More of Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner when we come forward.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is asking residents to report price gouging after the recent wildfires. State law bans unfair price hikes on essentials during emergencies, which Governor Newsom declared last Tuesday. A poll shows former Governor Andrew Cuomo leading a hypothetical New York City mayoral race with 32% support ahead of Scott Stringer at 10% and Black Mayor Eric Adams at 6%. Adams dismissed the results, recalling Andrew Yang's past lead before losing to him. A once controversial Brooklyn migrant shelter built during New York City's 2023 migrant crisis now stands empty. Black Mayor Eric Adams toured the site as workers dismantled it, announcing more shelter closures citywide due to declining arrivals. And Haitians in Florida are marking 15 years since a deadly earthquake killed over 300,000 people. In Little Haiti, they held a moment of silence and marched to the Cultural Center. I'm Amber Payton on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer custom-made faux wood and real wood blinds and shutters, cellular shades, Roman shades, bamboo shades, exterior shades, and more, all at factory direct prices. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tonight in Glendale, Arizona, the Rams and Minnesota Vikings will play the final playoff game in the NFL's Wild Card Weekend. The Rams are 2.5-point underdogs, 5 p.m. kickoff on ABC and ESPN. The winner plays at Philadelphia next Sunday. Magic Johnson's NFL team, the Washington Commanders, won their first playoff game in 20 years. The Commanders pulled out a 23-20 win at Tampa Bay. Zane Gonzalez kicked a 37-yard field goal at the buzzer to win it. The 7th time this season, the Commanders have won on the final snap of the game. The Commanders will play at Detroit on Saturday. The NBA has granted permission to the Lakers and Clippers to resume their schedule tonight. Both teams had games postponed in the past 5 days because of the wildfires. The Lakers are at home tonight against San Antonio. The Clippers are home against Miami. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 stands with you in tough times, connecting you with resources and what you need to know. Evacuation shelters are located in the Pasadena Civic Center, the Dream Center in LA, the Westwood Recreation Center, and many more. You can call 311 for details. If you're in Los Angeles County and in need of food, call Omni Ministries at 310-631-1557. Donations can be made to Zelle, Omni Ministries, Inc. at yahoo.com. Parking Lot I outside of Rose Bowl Stadium is a pop-up mutual aid hub where you can pick up everything from clothing to food to hygiene supplies for free. To volunteer or donate to help victims of the fire, contact the LA Emergency Network at enla.org. The Cochran Firm and Ivy McNeil, Wyatt Purcell and Diggs, Jasmine Canick, and others have launched a GoFundMe specifically targeting Altadena. Visit LA Fires. The impacted Black community urgently needs help on GoFundMe, and donate to help Black evacuees fighting for survival. Airbnb is offering free temporary housing to people displaced by the fires. Call 211 to sign up. The LA Chamber of Commerce is stepping up to help you sort out insurance claims and other paperwork. Reach them at 213-580-7500. South LA Cafe has free groceries, clothing, and water available at 1700 Browning Boulevard in LA. Track their giveaways or volunteer through their Instagram at South LA Cafe. U-Haul is donating short-term storage free of charge for 30 days to evacuees. Shelter for small or large animals can be accessed by calling 211. A Black-led coalition of community organizations is offering support and resources in the Altadena area at the Flint Ridge Center at 236 West Mountain Street in Pasadena. For comprehensive lists of resources for housing, food, shelter, and more, visit Mutual Aid LA Network on Instagram. Praying for LA and standing with you. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you need up to $3,000, go to WeFixMoney.com. WeFixMoney.com is the name you can trust. It's free to use, available 24/7, and you are never required to accept any loan offer. Some lenders offer same-day funding. If you need up to $3,000, type WeFixMoney.com directly into your browser. WeFixMoney.com has been helping customers for 15 years and has an A rating with the Better Business Bureau. So, if you need cash for credit card bills, car repairs, child care, or anything else, go to WeFixMoney.com. Make sure you type WeFixMoney.com directly in your browser. Go to the company you trust, WeFixMoney.com. Just fill in the information and get an answer in minutes at WeFixMoney.com. For up to $3,000, go to WeFixMoney.com. That's WeFixMoney.com.
Somebody's been praying for me.
Thanks to the generous support of the KBLA Talk 1580 delegation, we were able to donate 545 pounds of coats and blankets to the LA Mission this winter season.
Hallelujah, hallelujah.
The LA Mission expressed its deep gratitude for our gift all over social media, but we wish to thank them and all the other service providers who look out daily for the less fortunate in our community, finding our happy by being helpful.
Hallelujah.
We're KBLA Talk 1580, where we do more than just talk.
Somebody's been praying for me. Ow!
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
We are here right now on Truth Time talking about how love wraps into every other thing that we seek to do, whether it is individual or whether it is communal. It's the stream. It goes through. You can't separate love from anything. And that is a beautiful thing, because what would the world be if we didn't have a little love? We need it. So that we were talking about the fires and what is happening there, just the whole decay, and how what is happening in LA County is really a reflection of what is happening in our nation writ large and also our world, and that the blame cannot be put on just one person. This decay has been, you call it the American Empire, has been seeping into the American Empire for decades.
That's very true. And even when you look at the history of water in California, how does it end up producing a system in which a small number of people, a few billionaires even, can have a disproportionate amount of influence and control over the flow of the water for private gain and interest rather than public interest? Now, that doesn't mean it's going to prevent, major crises, but at least when the crises come, you have a system in place so that the water is available, so that the water is accessible, and so that everybody, beginning with the least of these, can be protected. You got some billionaires who protected their own little private space, and other people's stuff went under because they had their own private firefighters, and somehow they had access to the water. Well, again, it rips the veil over a corrupt system in which people are so obsessed and preoccupied with money making for private gain rather than creating systems in which goods and services are available to the many. Now, that's a historic problem. That's not just the United States. That's true around the world. It's been true, of course, in the history of the species. But we have to be voices in the wilderness. And as the great Sandy Ray, pastor in Brooklyn here, used to say, all the wilderness is crying out for the voices. It's got to go both ways. You can cry out all you want, but if you're on barren soil, then the wilderness is not even ready for the voices. They look at the voices and cut their necks off or demonize them or put them down. And if, in fact, the voices that are heard are the voices of greed, contempt, indifference toward the poor, that's Trump, then what kind of society are we living in? That's sick. What kind of system are we dealing with? Corrupt. And again, it's not name calling and finger pointing. We're talking about structures and institutions that produce certain kinds of persons who are able to find themselves gain access to high places with much power.
And it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, what is today doesn't mean it has to be that way tomorrow. And that's why in the elected space, or every space, but spaces of leadership where people have a certain level of power, we do need people in those spaces and in those places who really do care about that which they serve. And we're not seeing that right now. And in this presidency, I mean, who knows? I mean, God, you talk about miracles, Doc. God can work a miracle. I'm looking, the other song come to mind, I'm looking for a miracle. I expect the impossible. Hey, we're going to put some of that. Ain't nothing too hard.
Nothing too hard for the God we serve, the Lord. If Donald Trump turns out to be Martin Luther King Jr.'s vanilla second cousin, we say, ooh, that's miracle capital M ended with capital E. We're not holding our breath for that. That's why we're organizing against him. But we're not just resisting in a narrow way. We're resisting based on a deep sense, as we've said, of remembrance of our tradition, the best of our tradition, and of reverence for something bigger than our own individual egos.
That's it, the best of. So for those who want to help the residents, businesses, the global community of LA County, certainly here on KB LA Talk 1580 during our breaks, you're hearing all the ways that you can help. There's something that has to be done politically by government, but there are also things that we as individuals can do. So please give a helping hand to our sisters and brothers and family and friends, because but by the grace of God, there go us in Ohio, New York. It doesn't matter where you are, Alabama, where you are in this country and even in the world, that could be us. Doc, we want to move now to President Donald J. Trump was sentenced on Friday. This was the New York, because he got so many cases percolating. I mean, he got more cases than any president in history. He always talking about how he's making history. On that one, he made a whole lot of history. But the case in New York about the hush money, there was a sentencing for him. And, the judge just basically said you're free to go. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but there will be no jail time for the president-elect. He doesn't have to pay a fine, no community service. The judge just closed the case. He is a convicted, felon, but he doesn't have to pay any consequences for this hush money case. It is blatantly unfair because there are a lot of folks who are ex-offenders, because we got to be careful with that. In our community, this is a big deal. Ex-offenders who've had to pay a higher price for less than what this person has had to pay. And we know it is linked to his positioning. And so maybe justice is not as blind as they want us to believe she is. Doctor, she peeking out of that. She can see.
Oh, she could definitely see. I've always thought that if Brother Trump was a black man, he would have been in prison a long time ago. Just like if Biden was a black man, he'd probably be head of a car salesman place. Very, very slick with a smile and very kind, but unable to ascend to high places. So you can see all you got to do is flip the script. Where would they be if they were Jamal and Roosevelt? And I don't say that out of hatred at all. I'm just saying that out of a sense of facts in the history of America, given the ways in which there's been differential opportunities for black folk vis-a-vis white folk. All of them human beings, all of them can make choices that are different. But we have to be very, very candid in terms of what it means to have a president now who is not just a convicted felon. Because, I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, most U.S. presidents are war criminals. When you look at their foreign policy, dropping bombs on innocent people, 3 million people gone. We talked about Vietnam, 1 million gone in Iraq. We haven't got Iran's coup that took place in the early 50s, Latin America, over 175 interventions with innocent folk killed. Those are crimes against humanity that were sponsored by presidents. Now, some of them not even sponsored by Congress because Congress wasn't even in on it.
And the first dozen, Dr. West, just to add, the first dozen or so, give or take, were slave owners. So then there's that.
Other than John Adams and his son, you had slave holders who were president. Now, if slavery against anybody, let alone black people, is not a crime against humanity, there's no such thing as a crime. So we got to keep this in context, see, so that given that history of presidents and even U.S. government, as you know, you got some decent folk who make it through. They just don't have a whole lot of power and authority. They're fighting, and we support them. And this is true in our own respective professions too. Professors, ministers, and so forth. Whole host of folk accommodated the empire, folk fighting against it.
Well, when you benefit from it, you accommodate. And some people did it on purpose and some people by accident. But as one of my mentors used to say, it doesn't matter whether you meant to kill me on purpose or by accident. Dead is dead. When we come forward, we are going to continue this conversation. You are listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Ignited Light program invites one and all to the 8th annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, January 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza. The spirit of Dr. King's legacy of service continues as local organizations come together. The drive-through food giveaway, free medical services, the Department of Children's Services offering employment opportunities. Foster and emancipated females aged 18 to 26 can take part in the very special She Ready luggage giveaway on Saturday, January 18th, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., Baldwin Hills, Crenshaw Plaza. More info, visit adayon.org. Again, adayon.org. Drivers, please enter from the Marlton Ave entrance.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin.
Hey, good morning. You're heading to the airport, right?
Yep, thanks for checking. I like the car. How long have you been a rideshare driver?
About 3 years now. I really enjoy it.
Isn't it hard to make money these days with the price of gas being so high?
Not for me. I use Upside, the free app that gives you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get real money back when you get gas with the Upside app?
Yep, I get real cash back every time I get gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make around $200 to $300.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the Upside app now.
Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code TOOL for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank account, PayPal, or a gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code TOOL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code TOOL.
Truth shall rise again. You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner, only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes, truth crushed to the earth shall indeed rise again. I want to correct something that I said earlier in terms of some of the rundown that Dr. West are talking about in today's hot news. about President Biden, the pardons may come for the Trump critics. I forgot to say the word critics, and not President Biden seeking to pardon President Donald J. Trump. You couldn't either. You only could be pardoned for federal stuff and not necessarily what you do in the states. And speaking of states, in New York with the hush money case, Doc, so the judge pretty much said, off with you. Nothing to see here, nothing we can do here. Some people may be wondering, well, does the president-elect get to keep his ability to vote? Because we know that is a problem throughout the United States for former offenders, ex-felons. And I'm saying it this way, because I want to separate what President-elect Donald J. Trump has been accused of and all the cases that are pending, which nothing is probably ever going to happen to this man because he won the presidency. Extrapolate that out from the crisis of incarceration and a system that definitely sees Black people and then brown people and poor people differently than it sees white people and folks who are more affluent across the board. This is a problem in the United States, and it really did. So he will not lose his right to vote. He votes from Florida. And Florida law is basically, if you served your time or fulfilled your obligations, you can indeed have the right to vote. So he won't lose his right to vote. We have that in certain states where ex-offenders or returning citizens lose their right to vote, and they have to do something to regain it. And it has been my contention, Dr. West, when I saw Democrats try to use this as a strategy. You may remember this. They tried to use Trump's transgressions as a strategy. In other words, Harris is a prosecutor, so she's going to prosecute the case against Donald J. Trump. And that always cut me the wrong way. And it's because of this. Because for generations, Black activists in particular, not only, but in particular, have been fighting against a system that does not allow for folks to be redeemed, and how that falls on Black people, especially Black men. And so with the Democrats using that as one of their talking points, I admonished them publicly saying, wait a minute, slow this down. Now, if you want to talk about President Donald J. Trump and his transgressions, then you need to lay that out and lay it out straight. But if you're going to use this as a rallying cry, a talking point, a campaign slogan that you're going to do across the board, you're hurting the very people who are not treated fairly in this system. And Donald J. Trump, whether he ran for president again or not, was going to be all right. But folks in the Black community were not going to be all right. And then poor people across the board. I just thought that was a shady way. And they tried to do it on the backs of Black. They tried to be cute by half. It was a little too cute, because we want redemption. We want people who have served their time to be able to come back out into their communities and be redeemed and do good work and not have that held over their head. And so the victims of that prosecution of the case, so to speak, was going to fall on Black people the hardest, Dr. West.
Oh, no, that's real. And I saw you going at it. We were in, Denver together. We were in so many different places together. You were laying that out with tremendous eloquence. It took a lot of courage on your part to go against some of those corporate Democrats in the way that you did. But so many of those Democrats, they're so far removed from any experience of incarceration. Any of us who've been struggling for freedom for many years have been to jail. And all of our heroes have been to jail, from Martin and Malcolm to Fannie Lou to Stokely Carmichael, and go on and on and on. It's hard to bear witness to love and truth in a corrupt system and sick society without being incarcerated, let alone assassinated. But on the other hand, you got folk who are fairly persecuted and punished in the name of the law. I think Trump got a fair trial, actually. I think they made a fair judgment. He was just able to get out of it. That's all. But that's not always the case. The juries don't always make fair judgments.
That is not always the case. We will continue to litigate this case when we come forward. You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
This is where love and truth meet.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
You're listening to Truth Time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner.
In our remaining 4 minutes or so, we're going to try to swirl together a couple of things here. We were just talking about justice or the lack of President Donald J. Trump, the hush money case. Nothing is going to happen to him. He's going to retain most of or all of his rights. The only person that could pardon him on this one would be the governor of New York, and I don't see Governor Holcomb doing that. But the broader issue of what this nation looks like in terms of meting out justice and not meting out justice, and does your economic status have anything to do with you getting more justice, and does your race or ethnicity prevent you from getting any justice at all? And I want to add to that, Doc, the fact that President Biden has indicated he's still kind of thinking about doing some what they call preemptive pardons for some high-profile people that President-elect Donald J. Trump may try to seek revenge against.
Yeah, but I just think that, if Biden's going to pardon some folk, he ought to pardon some people who have been treated unfairly and pardon some folk who ought not be living under the shadow of what they've had to come to terms with. I think of Mumia Abu-Jamal. I think of Leonard Peltier. They should pardon our dear brother Jesse Jackson Jr. They should pardon a whole host of folk who have been unfairly persecuted in this way. I think of my dear brother Mark Ridley Thomas, who ought to be at the top of the list. But there's so many others. But I don't think he's moving in that direction. But he might surprise us these last few days. Definitely. I've been thinking about my dear brother Bashir in Cleveland, who I love so very much. You know what I mean?
I do. I would love to be surprised in that way. And also I want to add Dong Zinger to that. And I'm glad you said Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr. Absolutely. But Dong Zinger, our brother that went up against the oil companies in the Amazon.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
should be pardoned.
Yes.
Yeah, we need to definitely do that. Well, Doc, this has been a stone cold blast. Hopefully our audience have gotten a dose on this episode about how to weave love into our lives both individually and also collectively. It is very true that love lifted me. It can lift us in all ways. It is an action word and it is courageous. That is our time on Truth Time with Dr.
Time is
Cornel
the
West.
right time.
It's the right time with Dr. Cornel West and Nina Turner on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 Things You Should Know from BIN News. Black Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is asking residents to report price gouging after the recent wildfires. State law bans unfair price hikes on essentials during emergencies, which Governor Newsom declared last Tuesday. A poll shows former Governor Andrew Cuomo leading a hypothetical New York City mayoral race with 32% support ahead of Scott Stringer at 10% and Black Mayor Eric Adams at 6%. Adams dismissed the results, recalling Andrew Yang's past lead before losing to him. A once controversial Brooklyn migrant shelter built during New York City's 2023 migrant crisis now stands empty. Black Mayor Eric Adams toured the site as workers dismantled it, announcing more shelter closures citywide due to declining arrivals. And Haitians in Florida are marking 15 years since a deadly earthquake killed over 300,000 people. In Little Haiti, they held a moment of silence and marched to the cultural center.